Hello, I'm George Hayes, and this is my third tutorial as far as on SDL. We're going to be covering event handling in this project. The project is going to be very similar to that of the last two. In fact, you can start off by using the one as far as in the setup as far as using SDL with codeblocks 2.0 and mingw and type in the code additional lines, or you could sit there and download the project from off of my website, which will be listed down below. Anyway, if you are going to follow along in this, the differences in this project I'm going to show you very simply. We're going to actually have nothing different as far as in the first part here other on there. As far as in the clues.h file, the game.h file, we're going to add in a few little lines. We have the boolean toggle and t, and integer x and y, an SDL texture called ball. It's actually a pointer. All right, an SDL rectangle, and going for rectangle ball. All right, and that's going to be added into the original basic project as far as if you already downloaded it or created it from the first video. All right, so then we're going to go over here to game.cpp, and we're going to set x to 400, y to 300, toggle to 0, and t to 0. And that's the only differences as far as in these lines of code here. Now, we're going to use the same basic window creation, except for we're going to go ahead and put 800 and 600 in here and not use the setup as far as for that I believe was set as far as either in the includes or the game.h file. I think there is that little bit of difference, but it's not too big a thing. Now, very similar to that of the second video where we loaded the images in, we're going to be actually loading the same way, but as far as for a ball PNG, right? And it's just identical. So here we are, going loading the texture as far as the ball PNG into the ball pointer, which is for that image pointer, and SDL texture query to get the width and height of it, and sends it as far as the rectangle. X and Y is set by that same X and Y that we defined here as far as in the game. So we can go back to loading the content here, and rectangle ball width equals width and height equals the height that we gained from here. Okay, on event handling, which is the part that this video is actually about, we're added some additional new lines as far as in here. Now, this toggle 0, all right, is not so much as far as event handling, except for in the fact that we decided to set it up so that when we push the space bar, it actually toggles between mouse control and keyboard control of the ball. And I'm going to show you that right now by running this. Okay, right now it's using the arrow key to go up and arrow key go left and then down and right. But if I hit the space bar, when I start moving the mouse, as you can see, it follows the mouse around, and that's as simple as that gets. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and escape out of here and exit that. And so that's basically what this event handling does. So what we're doing is we're looking at the event type as far as up here, and it says for an SDL key down. All right, so when a key is actually pressed on the keyboard, all right, then it sits there, it goes switches on the event, because it now sits there, pulled the event in, that event key system. All right, is where you'd actually pull that from, and then you're going to do a case based on the SDL key up. All right, SDL key down, and so on, and for SDL key right, and so forth. And what we did in this case is what we set is y plus plus, so we increased y and decreased y for when y goes down, and x we go plus plus as far as when it goes to the right. We push the right arrow, and minus when it goes left arrow, and we break out. And so it's pretty simple as far as handling your keys like that. And if you notice, we have a secondary one dealing with keys here below as far as for the space bar and the escape for whether the program's running or not. We now have, instead of just having the event quit like we had up here, we have an SDL key escape, right? So when someone hits that button, it actually sets running to false also and ends the program. Alright, which is very similar to this up here. The only difference, the reason these are actually outside of this toggle is so that they still work while that toggle is in effect. Alright, now the mouse event handler is pretty simple in this case as far as for the motion. This is just an example, and I've actually put a link or reference to the wiki page as far as on all the SDL events up at the top of the file here. So when you download a copy of the one I have as far as on my website, you can look here and copy that link and go to it and sit there and see get all the event types and stuff like that if you want to look at it. So here we do as far as an SDL mouse motion event. Alright, and then it goes to SDL get mouse state and it returns to X and Y. So what we did is we passed the reference to the X and Y into it to have it, load those areas back up, load those up and bring them back out. Alright, so if we look as far as on the on loop, what it does is it simply toggles. We've added these lines in as far as if T happens to equal 1 and toggle is 0, then T toggle becomes 1 and T equals 0 again, because the normal state for T is 0. The only time T becomes 1 is when we go back to the event handler and we look right here. T becomes 1 when a space bar is pressed. So that tells us we need to initiate the toggle. Okay, so we go back here and take a look, and if toggle happens to be 1 and we set T to 1 in the event handler, then it will change toggle back to 0 and T will become 0 again to its natural state. Alright, so that's pretty simple on render. Now here's where we have a little bit of differences, and we have getting the width and height as far as of the render output size. Alright, so place your render in here and you pass a reference to the width and height as far as into it, and to fill those up and get that back. You use the rectangle ball X to set it to X, which was the X that we have in game here as far as in the class X. Alright, now we use a different one for where when we're toggling 0 versus toggling 1. When we're using the mouse buttons, we're actually referencing as far as inverted here as far as going from the height minus as far as on it, so that way when we push the up arrow and we plus it actually goes up. Now the -16s that you see in here is actually so that the mouse pointer sits to the center of the ball, and that's what we're working for, is the center at this point. Alright, but when we're going by the mouse and we're just putting the reference in, the mouse pointer is actually the coordinates that we want, so that we don't need to invert it as far as to subtract it from the maximum height as far as on it. So we don't have the H minus Y here as far as on that part. And I'll see if I can show you that again real quick. And right now I'm moving it around as far as with the keyboard. And of course you don't really realize where the center or what we're controlling by. Normally what we'd be controlling by is the point about right here, because this ball is actually inside of a square as far as the actual texture, and so it'd be about approximately at this position here, because it's a little bit larger than the ball. Now of course the center of the ball being here, when we hit the mouse pointer and we start to, it only works as far as when there's mouse motion, because that's what it's looking for. And you'll notice that it goes right to the center of the mouse pointer as far as on it by using the -16, because my texture happens to be 32 by 32, and so I subtracted the 16 from it so that I can move this up to when it gets to 0 and it gets there, as you can see, or 0 0, whichever way. Now technically, as far as the way SDL handles it, 0 0 is actually up here again, as I mentioned in the previous video, and the maximum coordinates for X and Y is down here. by using H minus the Y position as far as on it, and using that reference as far as the way I did, then we can reset the coordinate system to here as far as for 0, 0, and just uh, change from one coordinate system over to the other coordinate system. Alright, and then of course we clean up like normal as far as when we end out of this, so there's very little difference as far as in the rendering as far as on it and all. What it boils down to is you're going to move the coordinates of the rectangle for whatever image you're wanting to move. Alright, as far as the X and Y of that rectangle that's assigned to that image, and that moves the image as far as on your screen. And so that's what we're actually doing here by this. And anyway, you can download it from my website listed again, as I said down below, and hope you enjoy it, and thank you very much for listening.